Welcome back, everybody, to the Take 3 Theological Variety Hour. I'm Christine Chase. I'm here with Erica Sakuchi and Seth Alexander. And today, we are going to talk to you, and we're going to discuss just some of the weirdest Catholic things that we could think of. Now, mind you, this is going to be part one. Because as soon as this topic came up, my immediate response was, well, that's going to take more than one episode. So this is Weirdo Catholic Culture, part one. If you have anything that you've experienced, by the way, I'm just going to say this right now. Anything that you've encountered culturally that you just think is weird or off the wall or funny, go ahead, hop on our social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Let us know. Tell us your story. We would love these. We dig this stuff so hardcore. So without much further ado, we're going to start off with Erica. Erica has some interesting stories to share with us.
Yay! Okay, so I am sorry for the raspy burlesque voice that I bring to you once again. I don't know, maybe some of you enjoy it. Good for you. I have bronchitis and not coronavirus, but I have bronchitis. And my kids gave me, I don't know, I can't even tell you folks. And if you have kids, I bet you understand. They nibble on your stuff when you're not looking, and then it's like sudden death. So forgive me if I'm coughing and sneezing and whatnot. But I do have some awesome weird Catholic curiosities to bring you today, and I'm super excited about them. One of them, okay, so both are kind of personal, but one of them is a little bit more personal than the other. Not like gross personal, like, having more to do with my life personal. The first one is going to be where I grew up when I was a kid. So I am from Fall River, Massachusetts. Shout out to Fall River.
Oh,
yeah, woohoo! It is a little city in southern Massachusetts, just at the bottom of the hook. We're not too far from Cape Cod, but we actually sit right on the border of Rhode Island. So I'm kind of like, I was equally in Rhode Island and Massachusetts as a kid. Anyway, Fall River, Mass, some of you might know, is the infamous home of Lizzie Borden. Yes, I grew up.
She had an axe.
She did. She had a nicely sharpened axe.
I hear she did something to her parents with it.
She might have. She said she didn't. But, I don't know. Yeah. I'm not judging. My mom's cousin lived next door. So, it's a small city. Everybody knew what was going on, and everybody felt she was guilty, but they actually couldn't prove it. So a little bit of weirdness there with Lizzie Borden. But the Bordens were a really big family name in where I grew up. So it was very scandalous, actually, because part of them were fairly well-to-do. So scandal abides. Anyway, when I was a kid, because obviously Lizzie Borden, I'm not that old. I don't know. Maybe Seth was. He's the oldest.
Shut up.
So Lizzie Borden was way before, but around the same time, the second church built in the city I grew up in was St. Anne's Cathedral. And it was actually built by the French Dominicans who came over from France in order to help found the area. And the Dominicans had a lot of traditions. So we have the upper church for St. Anne's, and we have the lower church. And incidentally, if any of you like donating to historical causes, they have been trying to save the church, save the clock tower. They've been trying to save the church for a while now. So I can give you some links if you're interested in learning more about that. But it is a very historical church, and it would be an absolute shame if we let it go. So anyway, so the Dominicans built the top church and then what we called the lower shrine. And in the lower shrine, there were actually like a lot of little shrines. So there was a grotto to Lourdes. There was a shrine to St. Jude. The confessionals were downstairs. There was a small area where we held mass. And honestly, as a kid, it was super creeptastic. we had to go down there for confessions, and I went to St. Anne's school, so we were over there quite a bit, because Dominicans like throwing you into church a lot. So I kind of grew up, and when they said, oh, kids, we're going to walk over and go to the lower shrine, everybody was like, oh, ooh, because little kids do that, and it's kind of funny. And my favorite was the Grotto of Lourdes, because it had a beautiful statue of Our Lady with water running down the rocks, and to me, that part was a very peaceful place. But you're below ground, basically, so you get that very damp, cave-like feel. All the way to the back of the lower church, the shrine, was a I don't even know how to describe it, but I'm going to put a picture up for you so you can see how odd and kind of horrifying this was as a child. There was a big glass case, the size of a coffin. Okay, it was basically a coffin. It looked like a coffin. But entirely made of glass, and inside was a wax figure of Saint Concordia, or Saint Concordia, if you're using the English lingo. And she was carried around wherever the Dominicans went, this particular group of Dominicans. That wax figurine was carried from place to place to place every time they moved and founded a new church and moved their order. So she came with them when they built the church of St. Anne's and the shrine. Now, if you don't know the story of St. Concordia, she was apparently a babysitter, equivalent, a nanny, if you will, to children in Rome. And she ended up converting, and she helped other children convert. Not a lot is known about her. Supposedly, she is the foster mother of Hippolytus, but eventually she converted to Christianity, and she was very stout-hearted in bringing children, especially, into Christianity. And maybe that's why the Dominicans loved her so much, because they were so firm in teaching. But anyway, so she was executed in Rome, and she was whipped, lashes all over her body. And some legends and hagiography says she was beheaded. Others say she wasn't. This particular wax figure was not, thank goodness, because that would have been that would have been the straw that broke the back about having to go see this thing. But there were lashes all over the wax figure that were bleeding, and head to toe. And she had raggedy
bleeding.
No.
Or actual
painted bleeding.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, yes.
Thanks for that clarification.
I guess I never checked, right? So who knows?
Listen, we believe in miraculous things, and with the whole Saint Januarius thing and all of that,
House of Wax, I don't know. Maybe that is St. Concordia. Dominicans be up to some stuff. So it was pretty creepy. And I have a lot of reverence for it. That's not it. But when you are 6 years old or younger, I started school there when I was 4, and you go up to see this wax figure, you're like, what is that? You're like, oh, I don't want to go. And then it becomes a game. No, you go to St. Concordia. No, I double dog dare you. Go and touch your coffin. And so, yeah. And so kids do a lot of things like that. But I have to say, it was absolutely fascinating, because none of us understood what the heck happened to her. And then it was kind of used against us children, if you don't behave, it might be just like what happened to St. Concordia. And you're like, what? So little bit of terror there, with one of my favorite memories, actually, from childhood now. And I will post a picture. If you have a chance, if you're in the area, to go visit St. Anne's Lower Shrine, it is actually an amazing place. Miracles have happened there. And it's a place that will always have a very special place in my heart. So that's my first one. my second one is something I saw when my husband and I went to Greece, right after we were married, so the summer of 2003. And it is the Church of 100 Doors on Paros. Now, the Church of 100 Doors has an incredibly wonderful Greek name. I apologize to Greeks everywhere. I actually know Greek, but I'm not terribly good at speaking Greek, but I'm going to try this anyways. Panagia Ekaton Tapiliani is the Church of 100 Doors in Paros. And, sorry, bringing up my notes. It is in the capital of Parakia. It is absolutely one of my favorite towns. You people of Parakia, I know you're not listening to me, but you're amazing. And so the church was built in the 4th century, and it has a couple different legends behind it that I found very interesting. First of all, it's called the Church of 100 Doors. We counted as many as we could, and we didn't get near up to 100. Some people say that there aren't really 100. It's just called that. Some people say it was tumultuous construction, that all of these doors and windows, because they were counting the windows as doors, and that all of the, were built, and then there were extra. But basically, Constantine, the Emperor Constantine, the first emperor of Constantinople, his mother's name was Hagia Eleni, and she was trying to get to the Holy Land. And this is, of course, another one of our legends, right? So did this actually happen? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Makes for a good story. But she was trying to get to the Holy Land, and there was a big storm, and she ended up on the island of Paros. And she was very thankful, though, that she was not killed in the storm. And Constantine ends up finding out about the fact that his mother lived, and he thanks the Virgin. And so he decides to build the church in Paros. It is one of the most preserved churches in Greece right now. And people still go to the mass there daily, weekly. It is still one side is male, one side is female. It's really, really interesting. It's a beautiful, beautiful church with an amazing baptismal font. So he built the church to the Virgin Mary, and it was dedicated on Assumption to her in honor of his mom who was saved. So really, really cool story there. The Emperor Justinian ended up redoing part of the church, so it makes it even more famous because Justinian is another one of our very famous emperors. He did not build it, but I think he changed the aisles, he changed some of the setup to make it a little bit more of what was in vogue when he was emperor. And finally, the last legend behind it, 100 Doors. So what will happen if somebody finds the 100th door and opens it? And this is the mysterious part, because obviously, like I said, I've counted. I did not find 100 doors, not even close. But the legend says that if you find the 99 doors, a secret door will open that is the 100th door, and the Hagia Sophia will be Greek Orthodox again and returned to Constantinople, which is no longer Constantinople, so that would make it very interesting. But it kind of tells you where this legend dates back to, because it had to have started at a time where Constantinople was still Constantinople, and the Ottoman Empire had already changed the Hagia Sophia over. So very interesting, though. There are other legends I've read that, when you find the secret door, you find the 99 doors, you find the secret door, and it issues the coming back of Christ and the apocalypse happens. And interestingly, Christine was telling me about some legends that she remembers, in part, I think, an Indian church.
In Indian temple. Do not ask me to pronounce the name of said temple. But it's big, and they've already discovered at least $1 trillion worth of golden jewel behind other doors. But there's one they've not opened yet.
So interesting, right? Because there are all of these legends that kind of go back and forth about multiple doors, and what happens when you find the last one. And it's kind of like an advent calendar, right? Because on that last door, you find the baby Jesus. So maybe in the last door of Paros, you find the baby Jesus. So it's not so curious or odd. It's
or
just
the Antichrist.
Or you find the Antichrist.
Well,
Thank you, Seth.
The legend of from that temple in India is that if that door is opened, it'll release evils and that will plague at least the entire city that the temple's in, if not the entire world. So, they could be a pair of doors, Open door 1, you get Jesus. Open door 2, you get Satan.
Look, not to go back to Ghostbusters, but I'm pretty sure when they lifted that sewer lid, there was like hell below New York City and lots of pink slime. So you never know what you're going to. And the painting, right? Vigo was the doorway.
Yes.
I am the gatekeeper.
Well, that was movie 1. The Keymaster and Gatekeeper.
That's right. It was movie 1. We're gonna do Ghostbusters episodes. That's it. It has to be done. The original, though, folks. Okay, not to be a hater, but the originals.
There is only the original. There is nothing else. Okay, just for the record.
You don't like the Lady Ghostbusters?
Listen, if Bill Murray isn't on the screen being a smartass, it's not Ghostbusters.
I think the writing for it was bad. I think especially, yeah. I don't think they did those comedians justice at all. I think they could have been so much better than that. Yeah.
And honestly, it was just, from what I could see, it was a girl power rewrite of the original, which is bullcrap. I would be fine with like all girl Ghostbusters if it had been like the daughters, or nieces,
or cool, actually,
like a sequel, a continuing of the story, the next generation. That would have been cool.
Actually, I really agree with that. I think the next gen would have been really neat for them to do.
Okay, so
we digress into other odd things.
Didn't say it.
What?
Maybe that's what it was, and they just didn't say it.
No, I'm pretty sure it was a rewrite. It was a rewrite of the original movie, which was like that. You can't. It's like redoing Casablanca, okay? It was a masterpiece. You cannot redo and do better something that was perfect the first time around. Like the whole point of one of the great things about the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is Ray. That Ray's the guy who thinks it up, but it's entirely his personality. Like, that's part of the whole thing. That whole interchange of why the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man popped into his head, which then makes the form of the Destroyer.
That is like one of the funniest. Yeah,
and that was solid gold. You cannot do that any better than that. It's like rewriting Shakespeare. No.
Or when they said that they wanted to rewrite The Princess Bride.
Oh my God, right?
The heck, you can't do that.
Yeah, that's just.
I think I would watch a remake of Casablanca if it was all women.
Casablanca without.
There are other motives behind that. I know your motive. And I'm not going to out you on your motives. But
I'm getting suspicious here. Yeah. Okay.
So that's basically what I have. I will save my other Catholic oddities because I definitely have more, but those are the two that came to my mind first.
Awesome. I love learning like just weird legends, especially because I have such a love for like end times prophecy. I don't care what tradition, I don't care how legitimate or not. It's like why I love like Roland Emmerich movies. Like it's a weakness.
The world will end on Valentine's Day.
Yes. So great. Year? Huh?
Like in 2 weeks?
Oh,
No,
no, it was, wasn't it
previous
this?
years. What year was it?
I
Valentine's
don't
Day?
remember. I want to say, like,
I'm looking it up.
yeah, we gotta look this up now. Because I feel like it was not actually that long ago.
It wasn't. It was like a couple years ago. It may have. Was it last year? No, it wasn't
I
last year.
kind of like that. I kind of want to say it was supposed to be 2019.
Oh no, 2016. The end of the
2016.
world will be on February 14th in the year 2016.
Yeah,
Valentine's Day. Bummer.
yeah. Another great line.
Okay,
Those were
sorry.
just perfect movies. Okay.
I promise. No more Ghostbusters for me. Back.
Okay. So the things I have to share with you, I've got a couple examples from my personal life, and then they sort of work into something that a little more generic. So when I was in high school, my high school choir, it was an all girls school, so it was an all girls choir. Over Easter of my sophomore year, we went to Hungary and Vienna. We were doing, it was sort of like the Blue Danube tour, not the Sound of Music tour. That's entirely different. But we started off we were actually in Budapest for Easter weekend, which was really, really cool. And one of the things we got to do is we went to St. Stephen's Basilica. Yes, that's the English translation because I cannot look at anything written in Hungarian and pronounce it at the same time. It's just, it can't happen. So it's St. Stephen's Basilica in Budapest. And they have there, it's a beautiful, beautiful cathedral. And they were actually in the process of doing some restoration work when we were there. And I've seen, that was back in the 90s, so it's finished since then. But it was really gorgeous, beautiful stained glass. And in one of the side chapels, there was this beautiful, as I was wandering through, and there was this beautiful, it looked like a mini Gothic cathedral made out of silver and gold. And I was like, and it was, in a special chapel, and there were people praying around it. And I thought to myself, well, why are people praying before a silver and gold Gothic cathedral? And then I got closer, and it was so wonderfully morbid and creepy. I saw the hand of Saint Stephen, and it was mummified, is I guess the word I would use. So you have this, and with all respect to Saint Stephen, this is not disrespecting the man, but you have this like old, shriveled, desiccated, hand that's, it's rough and grim, and then it's surrounded in this beautiful reliquary, which the contrast of that really struck me in that moment. And then later in that same trip, when we were in Vienna, we were in another St. Stephen's. This is St. Stephen's Cathedral, which is in the center of Vienna. Again, another beautiful, this is a Gothic cathedral. The one in Budapest is a slightly more Eastern design, not entirely Eastern construction, but more so. But the St. Stephen's in Vienna is just classically, it has the flying buttresses, all of that. Also beautiful stained glass, amazing carved statues. And we went on a tour, and part of that tour included the crypt. And in the crypt was an ossuary. And we got to see the stacked bones of plague victims. And I remember at the time, a bunch of Catholic schoolgirls, some people were creeped out. I thought it was super cool just seeing stacked femurs. And the reason for this, to explain to listeners who may not know, ossuaries happened as a result of churches or towns running out of space to bury people. This was particularly a problem during the Black Death, or any of the various plagues that hit. It was also a problem, especially the farther east you go during the Crusades eras. But a lot of times bodies would come back from the Crusades. They weren't all left there. And so what happened is you would run out of space or time in which to properly bury the bodies. And so the ossuaries there was a process where they would, I'm not entirely sure what it was. I know that sometimes it came because if they had just run out of burial space, they would exhume earlier bodies. And it was, the idea was you still keep them in the church, and it's still on holy ground. You're not disturbing your rest. You're just reorganizing the remains. I know that for plague victims, what would happen is that the flesh was removed from the bones, and I'm trying to remember now, but I think it was basically that they were put on pyres, and then the bones wouldn't burn because they're a lot more dense. They are what's left. That they were then collected and they were placed into the crypts of the churches. And this was never the preferred way of dealing with the dead. This was always, from what I've seen, sort of an emergency measure of, holy crap, we're drowning in bodies. We have to do something. We can't just leave them out. So because the church is always, you always you're supposed to treat the remains of those who have passed on with reverence and with respect. That's sort of where the ossuaries come into this. And it's, on one hand, it's kind of a mass grave, but it's the idea is we're just putting everything together. We're making it neat and orderly, and it's still within the church, usually in a crypt. However, not always in a crypt. There are actually some churches that the church itself is an ossuary. So I want to say one of the classic ones. There's several. I'm going through my notes here. So when I was thinking of these, the first one I thought of is the Sedlec ossuary in the Czech Republic. And it is in Kutna Hora, and pardon to anyone who is Czech or speaks Czech if that was not pronounced well. It is a chapel that is decorated with more than 40,000 human skeletons. And these things are literally, you have garlands of skulls draped from the arches. You have these pillars with skulls on them. The chandelier uses every bone of the human body at least once. So it is, if you like things that are creeptastic, it is absolutely the place to go. There's another one, is the San Bernardino alle Ossa in Milan, and there is it's another small church. The adjacent cemetery had run out of space, and so they built a room in a sort of crucifix shape to hold bones. And so it's there's this fascinating, there's these beautiful paintings incorporated among the bones. There's also places like Skull Chapel in Chermna, Poland, which is the victims of the 30 Years' Wars and the Silesian Wars. And their crypt church is just lined with bones and skulls. And there's multiple places like this around the world. that you can find and you can look up. And it was just what happened when there was you were running out of space to put dead people, but you wanted to have them hold the remains in a respectful way where they wouldn't be forgotten, where people would remember to pray for the souls of the departed. Now, I know in previous episodes I've made it pretty clear that I really love the sort of Memento Mori aesthetic that we sometimes get in certain aspects of Catholicism. I appreciate it not just because I was a goth, not just because I was a goth when I was in high school, but it is good to remember that that's also part of life. And I think that sometimes there's so much focus on the happy and the bright shiny things. It is a good reminder that death is a thing and that death has value. So that is what I wanted to touch on in this episode, was just sort of between the ossuaries and the relics. The relics we've discussed those before. They can get kind of weird sometimes, especially the way that sometimes they are treated. But the concept of relics is actually pretty cool. I just think that sometimes people go a little too crazy with them. So that is what I have for us today. And I'll try to find some pictures that I took of St. Stephen's hand. It's something else. I know you can find them online, but I'll see if I can find the ones I took when I was in Budapest. So.
Well, and it's kind of interesting because you're talking about the need to save space. And I mean, essentially, New Orleans does that, right? We all learned that when we lived there. You let the bodies decay, and then you just scoot those bones right back, and you can stack up like an entire 3-4 generations in a crypt. But it sounds weird because us Americans are used to having, in most places of the country, these sweeping cemeteries with long lawns and, single caskets with space around them. And that's just not the case, especially, the plague, how many people were dying at what rate. There had to be some practicality to what they were going to do.
Yeah. And it's you, especially when you're in the situation of how do we deal with these space limitations, these time limitations, but also deal with everyone in the most respectful way possible. And that's, as you say, that's something that American Catholics really, we've been blessed that we haven't had to deal with those sorts of logistics so far in our history. But it's an absolute thing, and it's something that look into. It also helps counteract. I see, especially around Halloween, a lot of people in the sort of Christian sphere get very upset about the imagery of death, and they call it satanic. And I think this is a good reminder that it is not inherently so. And I like the sort of eternally countercultural aspect of relics and ossuaries, and the little goth kid in me will always be into it and always love it.
I think I agree with you. I think, when I started learning about Day of the Dead culture, I am not Mexican, but wow, I have a lot of respect for it and just found it really amazing what they did with the sugar skulls and the imagery behind it. I mean, it's really cool. If y'all have not had a chance to go, not you two, but all y'all haven't had a chance to go to a Day of the Dead celebration or to make sugar skulls or to learn about it, it is really, really, really fascinating. So I urge you to do that too, because very cool. Yeah, neat. Good.
So
good,
Seth,
very.
yeah, you wanna Tell us what you got.
Cool. So, I have two things that are somewhat related. Okay. Anyway, so today is the feast of Saint Agatha, and Agatha is one of these virgin mothers that we've heard a lot about. For me, probably. She stands out because of the way she murdered. So her story is very similar in some ways to some of these other tales. There's this Roman official who wants to marry her, and she doesn't want to because she's Christian and she wants to remain a virgin. So the Roman official has her tortured. In this case, he had her tortured and ultimately had her breasts cut off. Agatha is typically depicted in iconography, specifically in the Middle Ages. She's depicted with a plate with two breasts on the plate. This was misinterpreted by looking at the art. People think that they were loaves of bread, or that they were bells. So Agatha is the patroness of bakers, and she's the patroness of bell founders. And in the modern age, she's the patroness of women or people who suffer from breast cancer. So, on Agatha, I found a recipe called Mini Virginie, which is a cake that is traditionally made on St. Agatha's Day. It's kind of like a breast. So I am attempting
Wait.
today.
Kind of? Wait.
Well,
Back that train up.
Yes, they're like boobs. It's actually kind of like a pastry. It has a ricotta and chocolate filling, and it's a dome shape, and it's topped with a maraschino cherry. Apparently, it is a traditional recipe that was developed by nuns in Sicily. St. Agatha is from Sicily. So they are sometimes called cassatini. If you go to an Italian bakery, it's probably called cassatini. And my mom has just brought me one of them. These have problems. I will send pictures later.
So you're gonna tell me it's one of those Pinterest nailed it entries?
It is. St. Agatha's breasts are very flat. But you know what? Just all you need is a handful, right?
I don't. What?
People
Seriously?
say that?
You're asking us if people say that?
Maybe
I don't think anybody's ever said that to me. Sorry.
You've never heard that. Anyway,
that's not ever come out of Rob's mouth.
Let's get back on track.
Okay,
I promise
microphone.
you.
I'm going.
You ask Rob about it. I'm sure he's heard that before. So hold on, I'm gonna try this. They taste good. Okay. What was I saying? Oh. So my contribution today
Wait,
was
are you eating a boob cake?
I just tasted it.
Okay, I was just checking.
I just put a little piece in my mouth.
I can't even right now, guys. Continue, Mr. Seth.
Do we need a break? Do we need to cut? Okay. So this recipe is traditional. It was developed by nuns in Sicily, because that's where St. Agatha is from. And you may remember St. Agatha from one of our previous episodes, our Christmas episode, St. Lucy falls asleep at St. Agatha's shrine, and, well, you heard the story. Anyway.
Who was more wholesome than St. Agatha, by the way?
Agatha has no problems at all.
Agatha's totally wholesome.
Yeah, it's, what was his name?
Italian man?
The Golden Legend, hold on. Quintianus. He's a creep.
This is Italian men. That's all.
Yeah, so I will also, just to give social location, there's not a drop of Italian blood in my body, so I'm attempting this Italian recipe, and the first time it has failed, but they taste good. So, yes. Okay, so these cakes are traditionally baked on St. Agatha's Day in honor of St. Agatha, and if you have a chance to get some authentic ones from an Italian bakery, I would do it, because mine are not good, but they taste pretty good. So, so the related story that I was going to tell, also about martyrdom, is that I remembered in doing some grad school paper on something or other that I was reading this text by St. Jerome, who was writing in the time period kind of after the Christian martyrs, so after Constantine kind of nominally becomes Christian, or at least is friendly to Christians, and the Edict of Milan, Christianity becomes legal. Christians were no longer getting martyred, so there were certain Christians who felt that the religion had kind of gotten diluted and decadent because everyone, there was no challenge anymore to being a Christian. Everybody was a Christian. The emperor's mother was a Christian, so it was no big deal. So there's these groups of people who went out into the desert, and these were like the first monks. They went and lived in caves and lived of asceticism, very difficult lives. And sometimes this lifestyle was referred to as white martyrdom because it wasn't actually being slain for Christianity, but they were in a sense giving up their lives of comfort, at least. So Jerome, in writing about these famous monks, links the life of the monastic to this earlier scenario of martyrdom. And so in introduction to the life of Paul the Hermit, one of these famous ascetics, Jerome very overtly ties together the monastic life to the life of martyrdom. And one story that he tells in the beginning of this text is about, he doesn't name this person, he just says that he was a young man in the quote-unquote flower of his manhood who lived during the time of persecution. Why are you shaking your head, Erica? Okay. So he lived during the time of Christian persecution, and whatever emperor or Roman official caught this poor young man, he had him tied up in a garden and just left him there. And in the story that Jerome tells, a beautiful prostitute comes to and finds this young Christian man tied up in the garden. She tries to make some moves on him, but because he's, a good, chaste Christian, he rejects her advances, but he's tied up, so there's not a whole lot he can do, right? So Jerome says that, I need to stop looking at Erica as I tell the story. So Jerome says that this young man bit off his tongue and spit it in the prostitute's face.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a hell of a response to serious sexual harassment.
Well, right. So, I would, yeah. I mean, and unfortunately, this text I have doesn't say what happens next, but I mean, I would assume she left. But then he, doesn't have a tongue anymore. So, did he bleed to death? I don't know. I just wonder what happened.
I mean, he might have lived.
Well, yeah, I guess
people had their
people did.
tongues cut out frequently in the ancient world.
Yeah,
So.
but didn't they have some medical attention afterwards?
I mean, maybe. This is not something I've actually researched myself.
I'm not an expert in tongue removal.
Yeah,
I would say that biting it off and spitting at someone is probably not optimal.
Although it's pretty hardcore.
Well, yeah, I would say.
I mean,
hardcore.
that's a whole level of begone thought that has not been matched since. Let's be honest.
No, I think it's very impressive.
Seth has brought us today?
What?
Cutting off tongues and cutting off bosoms.
Oh, I didn't even link it like that. You're
tying
right.
up BDSM, like where and
serious sexual harassment.
I saw that hashtag that you put. I don't think people should look that up on the internet. Actually, I don't think that's a good idea. Or if you do that, I think you need to be ready for what's going to come up in your search. I
mean, the Japanese are into it.
I brought you people wholesome things today.
I brought you cake.
You brought me saggy cake.
Well, I can't. It's looking better. Here, do you want to see it?
Is there no la leche in your cake?
I didn't put a nipple on it yet, but that's what it looks like.
Oh.
Christine looks horrified.
No, listen. I mean, I don't. I'm honestly, literally considering like what could have gone wrong with the recipe. Literally, that I'm like looking at that, going, huh. I wonder if something was done too much or not enough, because I'm not sure why it wouldn't have set up.
Yeah. It's really good, though.
I mean, I guess that's what really matters, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave that thought there. God help me, should I continue it?
It's kind of tough. They're firm.
Oh, gosh.
You're full of contradictions. They're firm, but they're deflated.
Well.
Oh, they're really good.
I don't think it's very realistic.
I mean, it's chewy.
Are we going for realism here?
I wouldn't know.
Oh,
okay. This is good.
This is flashbacks to college, people. You need to know. This is just like what used to happen around the table at college.
Okay, and you know what? I get a bad rap, and Christine gets a bad rap. Seth is all innocent and cute looking, and everybody thinks he's the good one. No. That is not true at all. Not at all.
Pardon for that guffaw, but I couldn't. It just ripped out of me.
I'm tired of my rated R rap.
All right, so wait. If your bad reputation is the rated R, is mine the heretic? Is that what it is?
Oh no, I don't talk about yours.
Oh,
what?
Good pull. Thank you. All right, now I know what you're talking about.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
I've had so much medication today.
Well.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
My head is swimming, listeners. It's swimming.
Hopefully that's the medication and not Corona-chan coming to get her.
Medication. Oh,
yeah.
Man. You guys.
Okay, so while Erica slowly dies from plague and Seth enjoys his boob cakes, I will remind you all that from dust you came, and to dust you shall return. Repent, for your end will eventually be at hand.
Does anybody know when Easter is? Now that you're talking about Ash Wednesday, when is Ash Wednesday?
Soon, end of the month, because I got to take off Lindy Gras so I can make king cake. But I'm pretty sure it's end of the month.
It's like the 25th.
So we have an early Easter this year?
It's pretty late.
I think, it's a midway, because, that is pretty late for Ash Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the last week of February.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about
Oh, yeah, that is late. Okay.
When it's
Sunday, April. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so next week, people. Next week. Because next Friday is the feast of Saint Valentine, we're going to be talking about love and some other things. But in the meantime, again, people, you got any weird, crazy things you've encountered as a Catholic, or maybe you're not a Catholic, but you knew some people who were, and you were like, God, what are those weirdos up to this time? Because you've seen the weirdness. Hop on our social media. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Share your weirdest, most off-the-wall, bizarre stories if you have questions, because you've encountered something, maybe personally, or you've read or you've heard something and you're not sure. Go ahead, leave us a comment. We love to hear from you, and we'll either explain or we'll marvel at whatever story you have to share with us. And in the meantime, one last thing, people. I had nearly forgot. I wanted to follow up. In the very, very first episode 1, discussing the problem of evil, I actually mentioned a TV show that I had started watching with my father on CBS called Evil, about a seminarian who investigates cases to see if they might possibly be demonic possessions or not. And I was, at the time, I had enjoyed what I'd seen, but was very wary because it's Hollywood, and Hollywood loves to get religion perfectly wrong. So I was a little wary, but I will say now that the first season has ended, I will recommend this. If you can take some creepiness, if you can take some scariness, this was 13 episodes, very well written. Even in the season finale, when we were getting to really creepy parts, I barely even noticed that they were creepy because I was so psyched and so excited about how perfect the storytelling was. This is, my dad and I, both being authors, both being storytellers, this is why we watch these things together, and we'll discuss them afterward to talk about plot, character development, world building, all of that. We have absolutely loved this series. So I'm not sure if it's available on Hulu yet or any of the streaming services, but if it is, I would, if you can handle some scary demonic possession type things, and some creepy stories, if you're a fan of horror or anything like that, absolutely check it out, give it a try. Very good storytelling. Absolutely, there are some fantasy elements in it, but even those fantasy elements are based off real things, to the point that I was pulling out my my copy of the Lesser Key of Solomon, because the demonic sigils they use look like actual demonic sigils. They're not, because I checked, but they look like it. So, again, well researched, very well written, heartily recommend that show for anyone who might be interested.
So you can buy season 1 on Amazon Prime for $20, and each episode is $3, or you can watch all of season 1 with a 7-day free trial to CBS All Access. Just, I didn't say that you can cancel as soon as you watch Evil, but you can,
Yeah, it might be worth, a weekend binge. It's 13 episodes, so 13 hours, a little less.
Oh, 13 episodes? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
very
you
short.
Can do that in
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah, within 7 days if you, planned it out right. But I would, I'd recommend it if
honestly,
that's the sort of thing you like.
What Christine was saying earlier, if you ever have questions for us, at some point we'll get into crazy things that we've experienced, and you can say anything to us, really.
Lord Almighty.
Like, whatever you need to tell us, you can tell us, because
there's nothing too weird or outlandish.
Really. We come from a very broad variety of people here.
And a broad variety of experience.
I think
we're going to be the last people on the planet to dismiss anything that you've seen or experienced.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Like that black thing outside our window.
Nothing dirty now.
Oh, I'm not even talking about the dirty shit.
There. No. No. When I got into trouble in New Orleans, I was not with Christine. Christine kept me out of trouble.
Yeah.
Well,
no, we had other trouble because we had the books flying off the bookshelves in the middle of the night and other things. Encounters. Shadow people, they're real. I'm just going to lay that there because I've, again...
I'm gonna say a novena for you guys.
I will take all the prayers I can get, thank you. And Seth, considering your seeming obsession with certain parts of female anatomy, we're going to say a novena for you.
I don't say novenas for anybody.
Make sure it's the St. Agatha, please.
Oh, sure, yeah, St. Agatha. My boy has an obsession. Help.
Someday listeners will tell you about the voodoo ceremony that we attended.
Oh!
And how
you guys did. I did not.
Appropriately we were dressed.
Oh, man.
I did not attend it. I was not there.
Okay, well, be thankful because I'm pretty sure we've been cursed for the past 20 years.
I earned my curses in other ways.
I work at a coffee house, so...
Yeah.
I have a PhD and I work at a coffee house, so you're probably not wrong.
Hashtag 21st century problems. Yeah, so on that note, listeners, we will definitely share more stories of weird and bizarre things in Catholicism, and we're going to probably tie it into the weird and very weirdness that we've lived through ourselves personally.
Weird.
So weird. Until then, listeners, have a good week. I tell you to stay out of trouble, but we know that's not going to happen. So, if you do get into trouble, don't forget to go to confession. All right? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
So, bye.